A warm welcome to all the BCom first semester students to this session. The subject is Corporate Structure and Administration. Unit 1, Formation of Company. In this session, I'll be covering the topic on Memorandum of Association. The contents which will be discussed in this session are as follows. Firstly, we will discuss about the meaning and definition of Memorandum of Association, the purpose of Memorandum of Association, format, contents of Memorandum of Association, and we shall also discuss the most likely questions which are expected in your examination. Introduction to Memorandum of Association. The very first step in the formation of a company is to prepare a document called Memorandum of Association. This document serves as the constitution of a company. It is a legal document prepared in the formation and registration process of a company which is limited by liability to define its relationship with its shareholders. The Memorandum of Association is accessible to the public and it describes the company's name, address of their registered office, names of shareholders, and the format or the process of distribution of shares. As I mentioned, the very first step in the formation of company is to prepare the document Memorandum of Association. It is one of the most essential prerequisites for incorporating and to form a company under the Act. Let's now understand the meaning of Memorandum of Association. It is the most important document which defines the constitution and the scope of powers of the company. To put it in a simple words, it is the foundation on which the company is formed and built. Let's now understand the mere purpose of Memorandum of Association. It clearly defines the scope and powers of a company, beyond which the company cannot operate. It regulates the company's relationship with the external or outside world. It is used in the registration process, without which the company cannot be incorporated. It helps anyone who wants to enter into a contractual relationship with the company, and they can gain the complete knowledge about the company. It is also called the charter of the company, as it contains all the details of the company, its members, and their liabilities. Hence, this document is very important. Now, let's get into the format of Memorandum of Association. According to the Section 4 of the Companies Act 2013, companies must draw Memorandum of Association in the format or form given in tables A to E. So I will describe every table in detail, which is given in the Schedule 1 of the Act. Here are the details of the forms. Table A. It is a form for the Memorandum of Association of a company which is limited by shares. Table B. The form for the Memorandum of Association of a company limited by guarantee and not having a share capital. So students, every table is clearly specified for which company it is applicable. A is for the company which is limited by shares. Table B is for Memorandum of Association of a company limited by guarantee and not having a share capital. Now let's see Table C. Table C, this form for the Memorandum of Association of a company limited by guarantee and having a share capital. Table B is for company which is not having share capital, whereas Table C is for a company which is limited by guarantee and having a share capital. Table D, form for the Memorandum of Association of an unlimited company. And we have another table which is E, which is for Memorandum of Association of an unlimited company and having share capital. So these are the tables which are given under the Companies Act 2013 Section 4. Let's move on to understand the contents of Memorandum of Association which is given in the Act Section 4. There are 7 clauses. The first clause is name clause, wherein the name of the company is specified. Second clause is situation clause, state in which the registered office is situated. Third, objects clause, for which the company is incorporated. Liability clause, for which specifies the liability of members. Capital clause, which is for share capital and number of shares. Subscription clause, details of subscribers of memorandum and their share capital are mentioned. The last clause is the succession clause, where the name of the nominee is specified. This is the brief outline of the contents. Now I shall explain each clause in detail. Let's understand the first clause, which is the name clause. For a public limited company, the name of the company must have the word limited as the last word. For a private limited company, the name of the company must have words private limited as the last word. So name clause has been identified as a company being a legal entity must have a name of its own to establish its separate identity. So this is with the first clause, name clause. Now let's move on to the second clause, registered office clause. It must specify the state in which the registered office of the company will be situated. Object clause. It must specify the objects for which the company is being incorporated. Further, if a company changes its activities which are not reflected in its name, then it can change its name within 6 months of changing its activities. The company must comply with all name change provisions. I repeat, in object clause, the purpose for which the company is established must be specified. In case they change their purpose, it has to be changed or reflected within 6 months. The next clause is liability. It should specify the liability of the members of the company. The members' liability, whether it is limited or unlimited. For a company limited by shares, it should specify if the liability of its member is limited to any unpaid amount on the shares that they hold. In case for a company limited by guarantee, there are certain specifications. It should specify the amount undertaken by each member to contribute to the assets of the company when it winds up. In case the company is winding up, this is provided that the member of a company, or when the winding up happens within 1 year of him ceasing to be a member. In the later case, the debts and liabilities considered would be those contracted before he ceases to be a member. The next most important clauses which is mentioned in this, the cost, charges and expenses of winding up and the adjustment of the rights of the contributors among themselves. When you specify all this in the liability clause, there is a clarity about the liability of the shareholders. The next clause is about capital clause. This is valid only for companies having share capital. Otherwise, this clause is not compulsory. These companies which are having share capital must specify the amount of authorized capital, dividend into shares of fixed amounts. Further, it must state the names of each member and the number of shares against their names. The next clause is association clause. The memorandum of association must clearly specify the desire of the subscribers to form a company, and this is the last clause. In case of one person company, we have an additional clause which is not compulsory for other types, which is referred as succession clause. OPC stands for one person company. This clause shall state the name of the person who, in the event of the death or incapacity to contract of subscriber, who shall become the member or nominee of the company. Such a clause is referred as succession clause. And let me repeat, it is not compulsory for all types of company. It is only applicable for OPC, that is one person company. With this, let us move on in summarizing about Memorandum of Association. So as I mentioned earlier, Memorandum of Association is prepared in the first stage of preparing all the documents for formation of company. So it is a most important document which sets out the constitution of a company, and therefore it acts as the foundation on which the structure of the company is built. So in this session, I have discussed about all the 7 clauses, that is name clause, situation clause, objects clause, liability, capital, subscription clause, and succession clause. And I've also explained about the content of each clause in details. Now, the important questions which you can expect in your examination are meaning of Memorandum of Association and give a brief note on the clauses of Memorandum of Association. Thank you all, dear students.